Today is Wednesday, June 10, 2015, and we are here to interview Sister Monica Hoefer. Our first question is, we would like to know about your journey of faith. What led you to the religious life?
Well, I guess probably I had an awfully good time in high school, so I wasn't thinking much about religious life at that point. But during my senior retreat, those things kind of come to mind, and the thought of the thing that I read was like if there was a bluebird that came and pecked at an iron mountain once every 1,000 years, it wouldn't begin to take how long eternity will be. When by the time that little bluebird got the Iron Mountain pecked down. But I guess it's just a sudden thought of how long eternity will be, and what do I want to do with my life in preparation for making it better for myself and others. And anyhow, so I didn't do anything. Well, my older sister, Sister Gabriel, had entered the Sisters of Mercy 3 years prior to that, and but she graduated from another school in a different city than our family moved after she entered. So we were in a bigger city and just a lot more things to do and everything. So my folks thought maybe I was just going to be going because of her, and I said, no, I don't think so. But they wanted me to wait a year, which I did, and I worked a year, and kind of kept that in the back of my mind. But at the same time, I didn't just sit around. I had a lot of good times during that whole year again with my the boy and girlfriend. So it was. And finally, at the end of the year, I decided to make application, and was accepted to enter the Sisters of Mercy, and that would have been in the fall of 1952.
Did you ever consider a different order, or was it always the Sisters of Mercy?
Well, because of Sister Gabriel being in this community, I don't think I ever really considered another order, although my last 2.5 years of high school, when my family moved from Independence, where we had Sisters of Mercy, I had Sisters of Charity of the BVM, and but had no inclination to go there.
Okay. What did you study as you were going through your training?
Well, as like I was heading to be a history major and a natural science and what else, minor? Natural. I wrote that down too. History major and natural science, and what was the other minor? Oh, English was the other minor. But then, we had philosophy courses and theology courses and just the general education that I think you probably got in your preparation for your degree. It wasn't all centered towards your one major or anything like that. So, and we were, they pretty much, as novices, we were in classes with other novices pretty much. We didn't have, they had the classes so that we could, be together, and we didn't do much contact with the lay folks at that time because we were just learning to become sisters, and so we were postulants and then novices, and so that's as far as the other courses that we took. I think it was pretty. We had a lot of natural science courses as well. That's just general education. I think most people have when they're going through their background toward their degree.
Okay. What was your role at Mercy College?
After being a student for those years, then in 1971 I became the assistant registrar, and then I was there as in the registrar's office from 71 until 80. And a couple of those years I was the actual registrar because the other registrar was let go. And but then my mother lived in Dubuque, Iowa, because I'm an Iowan.
Oh,
And
okay.
so my high school was in Waterloo, Iowa, and much of my first grade school was in Independence, Iowa, but we moved then to Waterloo after Sister Gabriel entered. My dad always had a commute from Independence, which was a smaller town, to either Waterloo or Cedar Rapids, and so he said, I'd like to move to Waterloo. And I said, I was a basketball player and involved in a lot of things, and I said, well, I don't want to leave here, but he said, well, maybe you'll get to be a cheerleader when we get to Waterloo. Well, sure enough, I was. So that filled that gap that I really wanted very much to be part of athletics and enjoyed. But so that was what was the question there?
What was your role at Mercy College?
Okay, so then
So
at
did-
Mercy College, when I became my mother was still out in Iowa at age 80, in fact 82, and in 1980 I said to the president of the college, who was Sister Agnes Mary, I said, I think I need to get out to Iowa to be with my mother. She's turned 82, and if something happens to her, and there's none of our family out there anymore, we had 2 sisters in Milwaukee and 1 out in Sioux City, so I said I'd like to resign from the college, and I was able to get a job at Mercy Medical Center in Dubuque, Iowa, as administrative assistant in planning. And so I made that change and lived happily out in Dubuque. And then, just as an aside, my mother died at age 99 and a half, so but she was so pleased to have me nearby, and when Sister Gabriel was out in Sioux City, as or was she? Maybe she was at Mount Carmel here. She's a nurse, but anyhow, so when she would come home too, but I would be kind of the stable one there, and we just had a lot of good years there with my mother, and she and I, and when the other ones could come home. So then that's how I left Mercy College, and then was for 24 years out at Mercy Medical Center in Dubuque, and then retired in 2005. I retired from there also. And so that's kind of the answer to that question of what I did at Mercy, I guess.
Well, how did you work your way back here?
Well, as I retired in 2005 from Mercy College, from Mercy Medical Center, at that same time, by sheer accident, it seems to me, I was diagnosed with multiple myeloma. And it happened quite unexpectedly. My medical doctor, was on my annual physical, and she, had the blood test and everything. Oh, she looked at something in the blood results that caused her to think something's different here. So she sent the results up to Mayo Clinic, and they wrote back and said, do further testing to rule out multiple myeloma, which I had never even heard of total. And I was feeling fine, so there was no reason for thinking that anything was wrong. But the test, so I went to an oncologist and chose a good woman oncologist. And the test that she did, there was a bone marrow biopsy for one thing, and anyhow, I was just right at the borderline of having multiple myeloma. If it was 10% of something, whether that was a certain protein or whatever it was, I don't remember. But if it had been 9%, I wouldn't have been categorized as multiple myeloma. So I really was just at the threshold, and so they really didn't start any treatment or anything for about a year. And so then as when it got to be around 2009, Sister Gabriel was still working at Mercy Medical Center in Dubuque. She had moved from Sioux City to Dubuque then a few years earlier when she resigned from Sioux City. We had a hospital in Sioux City as well, a Mercy Hospital. And so I said to her, you know, we just don't know what the progress of this multiple myeloma will be, and it might be smart for me to get back to McCauley Center and just be there in case there are big changes or something in health. And so that's how I got back here.
That's interesting.
An interesting story.
So can you give us any favorite stories, anything that you want to tell us about your time at Mercy College?
Well, you know, they're just, I guess, you know, over the years, I just didn't make note of some of the things that in the registrar's office. I know I said to, as I was the assistant for those many years, and then finally the registrar for a couple of years. But I know I always said to the girls we had working with us, I said, you know, even though we got really busy and people were lined up for add and drop and registration and all this, I said it's important that we treat each one just as an individual and not be harried and hassled because the other people are waiting and it's noisy and all this. And I said, you know, many times if you go to a bank and you'll notice that there may be a whole circle a whole line of people waiting, but when you get up to the teller, she just gives you her full attention. So I wanted them to, and that's what I tried to be with the students as well. You know, a good, friendly person, but at the same time respecting their needs and everything.
Does any particular student stand out to you?
Well,
did you help somebody?
Not that I can say. Well, and of course, prior to 1971, when I went to the registrar's office, I had been in a business education teacher. Even I didn't teach history. When I went to U of D and got my master's in business education, so I was teaching for about 12 years.
At Mercy College?
No, this is in high school.
In high school,
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And then when this opportunity for going into the registrar's office came up, I really said I like to do rather than teach it. You know, I'd rather do it. And so that's how I got out of teaching into the registrar's office.
And do you like that better?
I did like it because it was.
What high school did you teach at?
Well, I was out in St. John's Independence for 4 years, and then I was at Mount Mercy in Grand Rapids on a couple different occasions, up in Sheboygan for 1 year, at Sheboygan, Michigan, and Mercy High School when it was on this new campus.
On the new campus.
Mm-hmm. So those were some of my teaching contacts, and I think probably I had more really special friends from those days among the students because you really got to know them. And I remember one of them saying that her son said to her later on, I hope that I can have a friend from my teaching, from my faculty, that is as close to me as you are to Sister Monica. But we kept that up for years and years.
Nice.
And some more, like the one, I'm still in contact with her. She writes me. It's usually just Christmas kind of things. And another one that I had at Mercy High School, we kept in contact. I think she graduated in '66. And even when I was out in Iowa then working at Mercy Medical Center, she kept in touch, and at Christmas would send gifts and everything, you know. So that friendship has really, and so now that I'm back in Michigan, we do get together, and it's really.
Now that's a special story.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a special story. As a Sister of Mercy, it doesn't have to necessarily be at Mercy College, but how did you feel your work had an impact on students?
As a Sister of Mercy, I think more so when I was teaching, as I said,
Right.
that we just had some really nice times. I can still remember one of my bookkeeping classes at Mount Mercy. I was telling that when I was a young teenager, and I would come home sometimes from basketball games or something, and I would have graham crackers and milk before I went to bed.
I
and
remember
I would
those days.
dump those. And this
Yeah.
is at night, so before I'd go to bed, and so I walked into the classroom one day, and they said, "It's a happy graham cracker and milk party." And so they had brought in graham crackers and little containers of milk. So we had a little graham cracker and milk party, but for that kind of a surprise, I remember that so clearly.
That's
Yeah.
cute.
Yeah.
How has your ministry changed over the years? The city of Detroit and Michigan, and with the Sisters of Mercy.
Well, I think I've touched on some of
Touched on
that
some of
already.
it, right.
From my contacts in teaching first, when I was up in Grand Rapids and then up in Sheboygan for 1 year, and out in Iowa. And the other part of that question was how.
How has your ministry changed with the
Okay.
Sisters of Mercy?
Yeah, and then when I went into more administrative kind of things, that certainly was a change in my ministry.
change.
And but I've always enjoyed that very much. Even when I was out at Mercy Medical Center in Dubuque, I started out as an administrative assistant in planning, and then later on the department had to downsize. But I had the skills that I could go into other areas, such as then I became a secretary in Mercy Silver Advantage and Mercy Education, community education, and social services. So I was able to fit into all those kinds of things because of the business skills that I did have. So that's how the ministry has kind of changed.
Now, is that because of your degree your business degree?
My master's.
Your master's.
Business education,
Business education, not an MBA.
Probably ended up being an MBA.
MBA,
Yeah.
okay. So how do you live out the mission today as a Sister of Mercy?
Well, of course, our mission has many facets to it, and that is, of course, the service of the poverty, chastity, and obedience, the service of the poor, sick, and uneducated, and then that goes into other parts of, like our community has critical concerns. We refer to them as, and this it comes from the whole institute, when they have chapters and things, and like we have. Deepen and assimilate more consciously the practice of nonviolence, deepen our response to the unrecognized and unreconciled racism past and present within our lives and community, reverence earth and work more effectively toward the sustainability of life and recognition of the fundamental right to water, seek fullness of life and equality for women in church and society, act in solidarity with the economically poor, especially women and children, and then stand in solidarity with immigrants. So these are other things that we focus on now, and so that, as far as my involvement in those things, we do a lot just in social justice by contacting legislators and that sort of thing. We get action alerts from our community, and in different ways that we can support these critical concerns. I don't know if you'd like to have a copy of these critical
Sure.
concerns.
Thank you very much.
And then the other thing is, I find that with the multiple myeloma, and I just get more tired than I used to. I used to be very active, even as a sister, but even before I was a sister, I was, I played tennis and we did a lot of boating and all those things and hiking. And then as a sister, even we would do out in Iowa especially, we did a lot of hiking and cross-country skiing. But I'm finding, accepting the diminishment now that I don't have the energy even to do as much walking as I would like around the grounds. But I do use a walker for longer walks. And so that, I think accepting that ongoing diminishment, but I do find that I get tired faster than I used to.
Probably told us this, but would you tell us again? What are you doing now? And how did you make the transition from academia?
Of course, since I had made a transition from academia into administration, then
yeah.
that was no problem at all.
No problem?
No, not at all. And the other thing that you asked, what am I doing now?
Yeah.
I again keep pretty busy with the emails and things we get from our community relative to keeping up with some of these critical concern needs that we're working on, and then I do volunteer work here as I work in the gift shop one morning a week, and but again, our prayer life and our community, we have community meetings, and it just I can remember one sister saying that when she was going to come down here, she was up in Bay City, and somebody said to her, "What are you going down there for? There's nothing to do." And she said, "It's been a whirlwind ever since I got here." And that's about it. You don't have time, at least as much as you want to. You get yourself involved as much as you want to in terms of activities and reaching out in social justice and that sort of thing. So it's up to the individual how involved they want to be, and I do want to continue to be that involved. But and as I said, the social justice thing, we get action alerts from our social justice coordinators in the community, and so out in Omaha, that's where our headquarters are now for just our particular sixth group region. I don't know, that's not really relevant to what you're doing here as far as the organizational setup for it, because the Institute of the Sisters of Mercy, our headquarters are out in Silver Springs, Maryland, and then we have about 6 different groups who are like out east. There are probably that comprise, there used to be 25 communities, and now they've boiled them down so that we have about 7 small, not smaller, bigger, because our West Midwest that we're part of has got like 600 sisters in it, and stretches from Burlingame and Auburn, California, again to Michigan, and in between we have Omaha, Cedar Rapids, Chicago. So we're part of all of those. So there's a lot of keeping in touch with what's going on there as well as here, and because we get a lot of good information from our community, like the Mercy Messenger that comes out once a month for the whole West Midwest, our six groups. Anyhow, so it's just busy if you want to be, and then we have prayer life too. We have Mass and our private meditation time and other private prayer time. So the days just aren't long enough to get everything done that I want to get done.
Well, that's good. Keep him busy. This hasn't been part of the original interview, but with the recent passing of Sister Kenise, we're wondering if you have a favorite story or a fond memory you would like to share with us.
Well, Kenise and I were close, and especially in our younger years, we were she was ahead of me by 1 year in the Bishop, and so even on when we had vacations at our vacation houses, and we'd be there together and spend time in the pool and picnic and all that we had as a community there, and even, I know she had me, I went to her parents had already died, but then we went to her sister and brother-in-law's home at Christmas time one year, and this was early on, you know, before she got involved in all these other things, and I got involved in being out in Iowa, so we didn't get, weren't able to keep that up as constantly, but then now that I was back, and we just felt very close. But I don't have any other special stories to tell, except that I just cared a lot for her, and that was it.
Okay. And
I think you asked about Agnes Mary also.
right, I was gonna,
Yeah.
Joe, do you have a favorite story or memory about Sister?
No, because again, she was the president of the college,
Right.
and so my contacts with her were not that frequent, and so.
Well,
and then-
did she do anything at the college that you admired, or, you know, with students, with faculty?
Well, not so much that I can identify.
Did you know her outside of Mercy College?
No, because again, I think she was a year behind me in novitiate. She entered later than right out of. She had already been in college.
Were you in Iowa during the brouhaha over her
No, in fact, yes, I was.
Over her,
and so going
staying
to,
with the Department of Social Services?
Well, yes, and even when she was running for Congress, I had already moved out to Iowa,
Okay.
so I wasn't involved in all that, where she had to make those,
Tough decision.
yeah. So no, I guess I was kind of glad I wasn't around for it. It would have been very hard to deal with. So and then when I came back, of course, she died while I was out in Iowa.
Out in
so
Iowa.
yeah.
Okay. Well, our last question then is there anything we haven't discussed that you would like to tell us, or anything that you would like to expand upon?
Well, I just wish I had more anecdotal stories to tell you, you know, from my work in the registrar's office and the contacts with people and that sort of thing. But I don't have any outstanding anecdotes.
But we got to know you. We got to know that, you know, you taught high school, and
Yes.
you were the registrar, and you went out and worked in administration in a hospital.
Mhm.
That was important too. We wanted
Yes.
to know that too.
Well, that's good.
So, anything else?
Nothing else that I can think of.
Okay. Does anybody else have a question? Okay. Well, thank you very much.